It's the Fulhamish podcast, your independent voice of Fulham FC. My name's Sammy James. Welcome to the show. It is the Thursday Club, and thank you, Fulham Football Club, for dropping the big news just before we started recording. Josh King has signed a new long-term contract with the club. Finally, we've got one of our hot prospects onto a new long-term deal. No Fabio Carvalho or Harvey Elliott situations happening for now. Is it a sign of what is to come in the Fulham first team? Also, we're going to be answering a stack of your questions today. Some really fun ones for myself and Jack to get into. And speaking of the man, hello, Jack Collins.
Hello, Sammy. How you doing?
Good, thank you. How are you?
Yeah, I'm not too bad, thank you. Not too bad. All well.
We had a YouTube comment on last week's pod that said, how is someone in your friend circle always getting married? I swear every episode you've been away on a stag do or two. LMAO. And then he said, congrats, Jack. What are your plans this weekend?
Best man on a stag do. Yeah. I'm going to Ireland, going to the mothership to run a stag do. I've actually got stag do this week and then next week and then a wedding the week after. So this is the crux of my life. I'm just in that period of life, you know. I have been also for the last 3 years, but I feel like we're coming to the tail of it. I hope.
The key thing is that I even responded to said, this is mostly Jack as he has about 1 billion friends. Like I've been on 2 weddings. I've been to 2 weddings this year and 2 stag do's. One of them was yours.
Yeah.
So I think mostly this is Jack that's always on a stag do and a wedding.
I'm running my best, you know. We're trying our best to make sure we're at these things. But this was where we've gone. This year was like a little bit slower in terms of weddings for me. I think it was 6, but it was like they've all been big ones. Like I've either been a groomsman or a best man at pretty much all of them,
or it's been your own,
or it's been my own. So yeah, it's been a busy year in a different kind of sense. Like normally I just rock up and then I go home again, and then I turn up at the wedding and then I go home again. But I've had to do some actual planning this time around.
We're both on the Emerald Isle this weekend.
We are, yes. You're having a lot of fun.
Yeah, I'm going to the Open, which is exciting.
Very exciting.
At Royal Portrush in windswept Northern Ireland.
I was going to say that the weather looks absolutely biblical.
I'm just so glad I'm not playing golf because it genuinely looks like the worst place to play golf on planet Earth. Well, it's like trying to play on top of a cliff.
It's a tester, right? It's a tester. So I think 14 of the first 24 missed the fairway on the first tee this morning. So yeah, it's going to be interesting. I think the Open.
Yeah, I've also had to find my raincoat.
Yes, yeah,
I don't know where it is.
It's
somewhere in the house. I haven't experienced rain in about 3 months, but I'm going to experience it this weekend.
Yes, you are. As am I. Although it's a little bit brighter down south.
Yeah, I'm very excited to go to that. But let's discuss Fulham. Thank you for announcing the breaking news just in literally about 10 minutes before we started recording. Josh King has signed a new contract until 2029. Now, obviously, it's not a signing, and I know everyone's desperate for a signing, but unlike Tete and Cairney, which felt like contract renewals we needed to do, or that really Fulham should have got done a lot sooner, this is one that I wasn't 100% sure would happen, and it really, I think, is a signal of intent. Not just from Fulham that we've managed to get a hot prospect to commit to the club, but also that we're going to be trusting in him, because there's no way that he'd have signed a deal without some assurances that your future's in the first team.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, look, I think that Josh King probably has seen that there is, you know, he's being kind of utilised within that world, and that I think the question would have been where the pathway was. You know, with Emil Smith-Rowe there, with Andreas Pereira there, where was he going to fit? And I think this is probably a sign. I would be surprised if we didn't lose Andreas this summer now. You know, I think that's probably a mark of intent. Now, you know my feelings about that, and this isn't really about Andreas at this point. But I think that you have to show Josh King that there is a space for him to play in his preferred position. Now, obviously, we've seen him do a little bit of work from the wide areas. I don't think that necessarily suits him in the same kind of way. So I think that what we're seeing here is a potential passing of the torch, a potential kind of statement from Fulham that it's going to be Emil Smith-Rowe as the kind of starting 10, and it's going to be Josh King as his kind of replacement, rotation, backup, whatever you want to call that, with the option and ability to actually break into those spaces in cup games. We're going to see more of him, I think, over the course of this year. And that's a great thing. It's a change of attitude in a couple of different ways, right? Like, obviously, we saw Marco use Fabio Carvalho in that role when we were in the Championship, but one of the kind of hallmarks of Fulham in the Premier League has been, under Marco Silva, has been that trust and experience, going to the older heads rather than putting youngsters into that gap. And we saw it with someone like Luc de Fougerols as well, right, who also has signed his new deal. And there is a kind of space where you're talking about that, and we discussed it a little bit last week, where you have to show them, if you want these players to sign, that there are going to be pathways for them to come into the first team. Now, maybe that includes them going out on loan, and I still wouldn't be surprised if we see de Fougerols go out on loan to a Championship side perhaps and get kind of 38, 39 games under his belt in the Championship in order to kind of ready him for that top level. But I do think that we're kind of looking at something here where Fulham have had to adapt a strategy, and the club will have had to have said, and Marco would have had to have discussions with them, be saying, look, we're seeing youngsters walking away. And the Callum Osman thing was something that we discussed before. If Carlos Vinicius, who was putting out cones 3 weeks beforehand, is getting the nod instead of a youngster at that moment, what does that say about pathways? What does that say about opportunities in the first team? I think there would have had to be conversations. Like, if we're going to keep these young talents that we think might have big futures in football, we need to give them opportunities to play. And that doesn't mean you have to play them every week. It doesn't mean they have to be knocked on first team starters. I don't think anyone's expecting that from these players at this moment. But when the opportunities are there, they have to be given. And that, I think, is going to be a potential shift in strategy from Fulham. And maybe these new deals for de Fougerols and Josh King in particular suggest that those conversations have been had, and those conversations have been had with the players, that there is going to be more of a focus on allowing them the minutes to actually get to the places they need to get to in their careers.
And also, doing what we've discussed for a while, this is a way of bringing down that average age of the squad massively, right? And I just think it's hugely exciting because we've been burnt here in the past by losing great young talent for next to nothing. Obviously, Fabio Carvalho we didn't get what felt like we deserved from that transfer fee. Obviously, Harvey Elliott left way too soon. I think Harvey Elliott was a bit of a different situation because he hadn't even broken into the first team at all, and we kind of made a desperate attempt to put him in the first team in order to inflate the compensation fee, but he wasn't ready at that time. We knew he was a huge talent, but with Josh King, that is massively exciting. And also, whatever happens, right, if Josh King has the two best years at Premier League level, he's then in his early 20s, and suddenly that means he's worth like 80, 100 million. So even if it's sadly that he goes on to pastures new, at least Fulham will get a big chunk of money, which is what we need and what the academy deserves.
Yeah, I was having a conversation about this with Jason Davis on the radio yesterday, who's also a Fulham fan, but who's in the States. And we were talking about the fact that he was like, is there anyone that's going to go? Like, we thought that we saw a big sale in the last 2 years in Joao Palhinha and then Alexander Mitrovic. We've seen that cash then reinvested. And it doesn't feel like this year there's going to be a big sale in the same way. There was a lot of talk about Anthony Robinson. As we've said before, I don't think there's a natural pathway for him to go somewhere at this point for the fee that Fulham would demand. I don't think that anyone else is going to demand or command the same kind of fee that we've talked about for those two players. And the question was that I was posed yesterday was, is that something that we are worried about because do Fulham have to sell to buy? Now, I don't think that's the case for what it's worth. I think that there is enough in the tank and we've got enough kind of clearance and headroom on the PSR regulations that we can spend this summer without having to necessarily worry about pushing any boundaries. But there is a sense of that isn't a sustainable model in the same way. And you look at the clubs getting picked off around us, right? We've spoken about Brentford, but you look at Bournemouth as well with the two centre-backs and Dean Huyson going off for a big fee, Semenyo in demand, etc., etc. You look at the players around, Joao Pedro going from Brighton to Chelsea. I know that's a well-trodden pathway, but like all of those things bring in money as a kind of recurring kind of theme. And even if for Palace, if an Eze or Wharton goes, that's going to be a big kind of chunk of money that they're going to be able to spend. And part of the reason that Fulham haven't got a player like that, and look, there is two sides of that coin, right? One of them is good in that we talked about stability in the squad and having that kind of sense of we can continue to build from a good place. The other side of it is sometimes you need to sell those players to keep everything ticking over when you are a mid-table club. Like, it's just the way of the world. And the fact that Fulham's average age was so high, you're looking at players and thinking, even if someone is having an excellent season, is someone going to go and splash the cash on them because of the way that the squad is built in terms of age profiles? So having players coming through from a young age, especially if you can, and I know this sounds incredibly sad, like the best bit about Josh King signing is 100% that we're going to see him playing in a Fulham shirt for the next 2 years. But you're right in that if he does have 2 phenomenal years and someone comes in for him, then Fulham are going to be able to be like, right, that's a huge part of that fee, or all of it, in that he's an academy prospect, that we're going to be able to just bank immediately and utilise to refresh the squad. That's a game you have to learn how to play. We've been saying this for a couple of years, right? This isn't new. It's a game you have to play as a mid-table club.
Yeah, 100%. So Josh King, you think, will be mostly an understudy. He was quite effective, though, on the left wing last year. I remember being a bit underwhelmed. I think it was West Ham away where he came on the left and thinking, I'll put him in the middle. That's Josh King's position. He was very effective there as well. So that's
quite
useful.
wriggly, isn't he?
Yeah, and we talked about
sometimes.
We talked about versatility last week. In terms of having versatile players is good. And it does add another option to the winger profile, right? If we're short on the left, that you can put Josh there. I don't know whether Josh is starting 90 minutes and going to be all that effective on the wing. To be honest, I think Josh King is so good. Put him anywhere in the team, and I think he will have an impact, and he will be pretty effective.
This is the Sammy James put outfielders in goal again.
Yeah, put him in goal. Why not? I'm sure he'll do a great job there.
No, I know what you mean. I think that it's going to be very interesting to see where he's deployed, the kind of uses that Marco Silva has for him, where he's going to be utilised in different games. And look, again, I think that we're going to see a little bit more changeability from Fulham from a tactical perspective this season. I imagine, and we talk about this every year, but there'll be a start of the season part where there is a formation or a system utilised, which we'll kind of go for gung-ho. But I think that Marco has probably learned his lesson, and we saw a little bit last year with the back five changes, and I know a lot of that was necessity as much as anything else, but I think that he's probably learning that there is, some uses in versatility, and if we start to kind of shift that shape around, we're more unpredictable. There might be different uses for a Josh King in a system like that than perhaps there is in just the traditional Marco Silva 4-2-3-1.
We talked a lot about the Cairney decision when we released Fulham Folklore on Tuesday. If you haven't listened to it, I really enjoyed that.
It's really good. I really enjoyed it.
It was an impromptu Fulham Folklore, but myself, Elizabeth and Jack kind of went through the 10 years of Tom Cairney, but just keen to hear your thoughts. I mean, quite enjoyable that I think Alex Iwobi might have ruined the surprise by taking a picture of Tom Cairney, putting it on his Snapchat. It doesn't take long for people to find a Snapchat, put it on Twitter.
Especially because Alex Iwobi's Snapchat is legendary, right?
Yeah.
It's like even if you don't use Snapchat, people are going to find that and put it online. So it is one of those. I don't follow pretty much anyone on that, but I follow Alex Iwobi. So you're going to see those things. And so when you kind of come to that, look, it wasn't necessarily a given, right? In that Fulham have been known before, and especially with a player who's been here this long and has put in this much of a service. If he was looking for a new club and was like, can I just train with the club until that deal gets signed, it wouldn't be that weird for Fulham to allow him to just stick around. So it wasn't like a done deal given, but it did feel like as soon as he was back at Motspur, there was going to be change of foot.
Well, it was a bit strange that on Sunday...
He was at Wimbledon.
Yeah, when everyone was starting pre-season, Tom Cairney was pictured doing an interview at Wimbledon in all his finery. I don't know if he just got given an extra day off or maybe knew that the contract stuff was happening, so they told him to stay away, which did actually make some Fulham fans think, oh no, he's leaving. But actually...
So did the video.
Yeah.
It was very good. I thought it was very well worked, very well put together. I thought it was excellent from the media team and the way that video was scripted to be like, it's been 10 years, it's a long time at any club. So I thought that was very nice. I mean, I don't know. I also thought it was quite weird that pre-season started on Sunday.
Yes.
That seems like a really strange thing to do. But everyone seems to have done it. So it's not just us. Loads and loads of clubs went back on Sunday. But it just felt like a really, why don't you just come back on Monday morning?
Yeah, not on the Lord's Day. You can't be doing that.
Yeah, I was going to be like, this isn't West Brom. We have to recognise it. But no, I just thought it was a bit of a strange one. But maybe they were just trying to save it and they do all the other players and the pictures and stuff coming in. I imagine it was just tests anyway, right? So maybe he was just like, I'll come in and do those on the morning of my shoot for my new contract.
Yeah.
Probably fine.
No. Good news there, though. Lots of contracts across the line. One other bit of rumoured incoming news, finally, there does seem to be something. Sammy Mockbell from BBC Sports said that Fulham have made an approach to Arsenal to bring back Reiss Nelson. He said looking for a loan, which I found quite surprising. I assumed that if we were looking to bring Reiss Nelson back, and let's be honest, we always thought that might be a possibility, I kind of assumed we'd be looking for a permanent deal. I kind of assumed Arsenal would be looking for a permanent deal at this point. If he's not good enough to be at Arsenal, and seemingly Mikel Arteta has decided that, right? He wouldn't let him go 2 seasons in a row on loan if he didn't think so. Yeah, I'm a bit surprised that this is potentially a loan if it happens.
I wonder if it's just if the opportunity is there to do that with an obligation, etc., it kicks the fee down the road. So like I wonder if that's just some clever accounting as opposed to anything else. I'm not hugely worried about the kind of way that the deal works out, whether that's a loan, whether it's permanent. I imagine that at the end of the season would be the very latest time, if this goes through, that Fulham would sign Reiss Nelson. So like, I think it's perfectly fine to kick that fee down the road, have him on loan with an obligation at this point. And look, it's an exciting deal. I am slightly still concerned about his injury record. Obviously, we saw that over the course of the last season and what that means in terms of going forward. And that might be the reason that Fulham are looking at it again. And Fulham might be like, look, we'll have him again on loan if he provides, and it might be like a makes 30 appearances kind of clause in it that triggers an obligation. And they're like, we want him back. We are concerned about his fitness record. Like, we will take him on loan if he has a full season where he doesn't have major injury block misses throughout that season. We'll make that deal permanent. That would probably make sense from where I'm standing, but I don't know any more than that.
No, completely. I think that might be part of it. And yeah, I guess from Fulham's point of view, they probably are looking at, like, he's a great player on his day. He's exactly what we need, really, right? Yeah. He was the right jigsaw piece for the Fulham puzzle. He gave explosivity. He was lightning quick. He was exciting. He got you off your feet. There was an element of end product that was a concern. But I guess like any winger in Fulham's price range, there's always going to be something that's not 100% perfect about them. And a bit of end product, a bit of clinical edge, always feel like can be taught or can be learnt. But sometimes that explosivity is like what you're basically buying. It is if you've got a fit Reiss Nelson, he fits like a glove. It's just, is he going to be a fit Reiss Nelson?
I'd be intrigued as to what the actual cost would be for a permanent transfer and what it would be if Fulham put an option on this deal, for example, because I think that Reiss Nelson is a really good footballer. I really like him, and I quite like this news, to be honest. Any news is good news at this point, but like, I feel like there is the right type of profile of player that you're saying. I also have concerns a little bit about his end product, and I don't know if that, I appreciate what you're saying about it being taught, but there is also an instinctiveness to certain players in terms of finishing ability. And I wonder if the thing you do here is this kind of risk on either side. So one risk, if you take a Reiss Nelson, the risk is that doesn't improve. But you know that he is comfortable at Premier League level, you know that he's comfortable at the club, etc. There will be other players out there, probably in a similar bracket, who are far less proven and have not made that step to Premier League level, but who don't have those kind of inconsistencies when it comes to finishing. And you can pick them out. Like, I'm going to do an article on this for the website about, wingers that we should look at. And we talked through a few last week. Yeah. But you take the gamble on them if you're doing that, about that move to the Premier League, whether they can have the same impact in a league that's more physical most of the time than pretty much any other league in Europe. There are differences between them that aren't just one is better than the other, but there are reasons that players, for example, from Portugal and France seem to land better in the Premier League than those from Serie A, for example. And that's not a hard and fast rule, but it's one that you kind of tend to take as a kind of starting point. You can work from there. So you can take a gamble on a different player who maybe doesn't have those issues in terms of end product, but then the question becomes fit, and it becomes, can they kind of translate that into, one, the Premier League, and two, this Fulham side? Will they fit from that perspective? So whichever way you go when you're taking a risk, I think at this kind of price point, a winger like Reiss Nelson. But I think that looking to bring him back potentially on loan with an option, if he can continue to play and be a regular starter, feels like a smart move from Fulham's perspective.
I mean, obviously Fulham are the last team in the Premier League not to sign anybody. How concerned are you? Obviously, today it is the 27th of July, and looking back though through recent seasons for Fulham, in 3 of the last 4 we still hadn't made a signing up until this point. The exception to this rule of Fulham doing early business is João Palhinha, who remarkably was done in early July, the season that we signed him after coming up from the Championship. There's a lot of panic. There's a lot of dismay. I wonder if not having a Euros or a World Cup slightly adds to that. Also, the fact that the Club World Cup meant that
people went earlier.
People went earlier, and there has been a little bit more business. How concerned are you about Fulham's kind of lack of business so far?
I think, again, there's two sides to most of these coins, right? But when you look at it from the perspective of, am I concerned? Yes. Do I think that this is just the modus operandi that we operate with? Yes. Do I like it? No. But I'm not worried that Fulham aren't going to make any signings, because this is how we operate. As you kind of point out there, this is the way we work. Now, do I think that's the best thing to do? Do I think that's what Marco Silva would ideally like? No, none of the above. But this is how we work. So panicking about it when, as you say, it's been 3 of the last 4 seasons and we've ended up with players that. Do I think that players would be better off coming in and getting a full pre-season under their belt? Do I think that that's the reason that Emil Smith-Rowe struggled for parts of last season, because he didn't have that cohesion with the rest of the team and that ability to click? Yeah, I think all of those things are true. So when you kind of look at it from that perspective, I would hope that at some point we would learn our lessons. But equally, the phrase "learn our lessons" isn't necessarily fair, because Fulham have had, by our own standards, 3 pretty good seasons, right? We looked at these 3 seasons, and I think that first season survival was a must. Second season consolidation was where we were. Last year, I think, is the first time we've been like, could we have kicked on a little bit more with it? And I suppose that, as long as there is success, in inverted commas, but, success in terms of where we are, and ultimately a mid-table stable Premier League club is success for a club of our size. It doesn't mean it should be the ceiling. It doesn't mean it should be the sum of our ambitions. But staying there and being comfortable and being able to kind of slowly work our way through it is succeeding in many ways. And we've seen those cup runs that have become a big part of what Marco Silva is trying to do. I think that's something we should be keeping an eye on, because I think that's something that Fulham have definitely got a kind of, one kind of finger on, being like, oh, maybe the move is actually to have success in the cups as much as anything else. But I think that, considering we've been okay, decent, good, wherever you want to put us on that spectrum over the last 3 seasons, using this model, if you're going to the board and being like, well, we need to change this, they'll be like, why? Why? And look, maybe Marco Silva would have that argument with him, and I don't know what's going on in those talks that are happening, but, there is 2 things here. I would love us to go our business early. I would love us, the moment we survive officially, or even the moment we know we're safe, which, officially was what? April or March, but, in real terms was January, February. We need to be ahead of the game, looking around, taking the moment, taking stock of the situation in the transfer market, and then getting ahead of it. And that's how you I think there's 2 ways to kind of beat the value in the transfer market. One is be really ahead of the curve and jump on it first day it opens, etc., and have deals lined up. The other one is to wait late. That's how you get value. This middle part, as you're seeing from a variety of different clubs, is the part where everyone puts their foot down and goes, no, we can wait till August. We can kind of hold you off for a little while and try and get those fees increased. So from that perspective, and from a financial perspective, I understand it. But I think from a kind of squad building perspective and trying to kick on level, it doesn't feel like it's good enough. And I do think that Marco Silva will, at this point, we've seen him be frustrated before by these lack of signings. I wonder what we will hear from him when he's out in Portugal at pre-season. But I'd imagine that he will be frustrated again by the fact that this squad hasn't moved, even if we haven't really lost anyone.
Yeah. Good article on the Fulhamish website that should be out by the time that this pod is out, where Dan Cook has run the data on Fulham's business over the last 4 years, looking at whether it's slower than normal, or actually just when in the summer do Fulham do their business. Some really interesting stuff. It's basically a three-way split between July, August and deadline day as to when we do our business. But the graph that I thought was most interesting is the total transfer fees spent. So July is about half of what we normally spend in August, and then deadline day I'd say is about a fifth, despite there being cumulatively the same amount of transfers, effectively showing maybe what we already know. Deadline day is for last-minute bargains and loans, freebies. August is when the marquee signings arrive. July, we just generally try and get some cheap deals over the line. But it's markedly less than August. I am on the byline of this article because I wrote a bit of it, but I'll be honest, Dan Cook did all the heavy lifting with the data. It's really interesting. Check out on the Fulhamish website, and if you haven't subscribed to the Fulhamish website yet, do so already. Either as a free subscriber, get some articles into your inbox, but of course, if you can join us as a paid subscriber and help support the work and the content that we make, that'll be incredible. You get access to the Fulhamish Telegram, and that's where we're going to be heading after the break because we've got loads of questions to dive into. The 25-26 season is shaping up to be a big one for Fulham, and one thing you need ahead of it is NordVPN, the fastest VPN on the planet that allows you to watch football matches from wherever you are in the world on either your phone, your tablet, or your laptop. For instance, you could use NordVPN to watch Premier League matches for a fraction of the price, including those 3 p.m. kickoffs that aren't available in this country. Or if you go on holiday this summer, you can use NordVPN to access your UK TV subscriptions. And right now, you can use NordVPN on up to 10 devices, which means you can share the amazing benefits that NordVPN has with your family or your friends. And you can get a great deal when you sign up to NordVPN at nordvpn.com/Fulhamish. Not only will you get a huge discount, but you'll also get 4 months extra as well. And it's entirely risk-free with Nord's 30-day money-back guarantee. So to get that special discount plus 4 free months, go to nordvpn.com/Fulhamish. That's nordvpn.com/Fulhamish. Part 2 of the Fulhamish podcast. Sammy here with Jack Collins. Let's dive into some of your questions. Actually, before we do that, I was informed that in part 1, I said that today it's the 27th of July.
You did panic me a bit.
It's
is it?
It's the 17th of July. So Fred, who's here on the button, said, "Well, it's my mum's birthday on the 25th. if it's the if it's the 27th, then I'm in big trouble. Yeah. Big trouble, and I don't want to be in big trouble."
Yeah, we don't want to give you belated happy birthdays. We'll give a forewarned.
Yeah.
Happy birthday to Mrs. Cooper.
Happy birthday, Mrs. Cooper. Let's do some questions then, which we have got from the Fulhamish community on Telegram. I'll start with this first one from our very own Avas Malik, actually. Who would you pick for a 5-a-side team from our current squad?
Oh, that is a good question. I actually have thought about this before, so that's useful.
Okay. I think with 5-a-side, there is certain skill sets that you need.
Yeah.
First of all, well, obviously it's Bernd Leno, right? You need a goal, but a good goalkeeper, essential. A good goalkeeper, especially if it's a small little 5-a-side game, almost the most important player in the team. So it's Bernd Leno.
It's Bernd Leno in goal. Well, I mean, can we talk? We don't even need to discuss the other options, do we? It's Bernd Leno in goal. Yeah, unless you fancy putting Joachim Andersen in there or something.
Could do a job. Do a job. I would take Calvin Bassey as kind of one of your defenders.
I would do.
Strength and power goes an awful long way in 5-a-side, and just no one would get through effectively if Calvin Bassey, and he's got enough skill and stuff.
I was going to say the bit about Bassey that I would really like in a 5-a-side team, I think, is his ability to maraud. Like, we've seen that kind of ability to kind of shrug players off and move through the gears when he's charging up the pitch. That I think is useful. You need players who are able to interchange. So I think Bassey is 100% the lock here, yeah. I think you only need one defender as well in 5-a-side.
Well, I'd like to have Sander Berg in there.
See, that I'd slightly disagree with. Like, I know what you're doing here is you're going for the big lads. But like sometimes you can pass through the big lads. You need a little bit of energy. I genuinely had to think about putting Harrison Reed in here. Because I was like, actually, that kind of energy, like that kind of stuff, the player in the middle who badgers you constantly is really annoying.
Harrison Reed would be really annoying to play against, actually. You should be like, stop running. Stop it.
Yeah.
Stop it.
Yeah, like a little Duracell battery in the middle. I genuinely think I would put Harrison Reed in here.
All right, I've been convinced on Harrison. I was thinking first team. Cess goes in for me.
Cess goes in for you. Yeah, okay. All right.
Finishing.
Yeah, I think
finishing,
that's
anticipation, can do everything as well.
That's not one I thought about. That's a good shout.
You've got to play defence and attack in 5-a-side. You can't just be up front. And I mean, people that play 5-a-side with me would be going like, well,
you play like sevens, don't you? You play a weird sort of like variation on big pitches. I'm talking like small cage football here.
Yeah, I was thinking cage football. I'd have Sess in there. So, okay, we've got one spot left, basically.
That's difficult now because actually the one I was like, the person I think is built for five-a-side is Alex Iwobi. Like, obviously, Iwobi is baller. Like, you need that guy in your team who's just going to be able to kind of just like make someone. Also, you want this to be fun, right? Like, Fulham having Iwobi in the team makes us immediately the most likable team in there because you got that guy in there just like nutmegging people and be like, wee, and like filming it.
Well, having
That's what
Bassi
you
and
want.
Iwobi in one team especially would
Well, like,
be...
you always got to keep the boys together, right? Like, they love each other so much.
I guess
but
the
I
one
did
I
want
was-
Raul, but like...
I was thinking Raul...
But I feel like Wobes has to be in there. I feel like
you
maybe
not-
we drop Harrison Reed.
No, I think you're right with
You could
Harrison.
have Cess and Iwobi on either side of like a diamond with Bass behind them, and then Raul up front. That's a techie team.
Do you know what? I actually not against it being... I quite like in five-a-side a box formation.
A box.
So I'd have kind of like Bassi and Reed as the two defenders, and then Cess and Iwobi as your kind of attackers.
Wild. So I'm very much a 1-2-1 man. That's how I've always gone. That's always how I've gone. You know, it means I can play at the point as well, which is quite useful.
Well, obviously.
So that's quite nice. But yeah, I mean, I'm into it as a concept. I think I would go Leno, Bassi, Iwobi, Cess, Raul, and we just have fun.
I mean, yeah, I think my team's built more to win. I want Harrison Reed in there.
Yeah, no, I
Defense
totally get
first.
that.
You're not going to... Because basically no one's going to score a goal, and then Cess will just pop up with finishes, and he'll score like all the goals.
Right, okay, fair enough.
So I think I'd go Cess and Raul,
Okay.
drop Iwobi.
All right, cool. I'm putting Wobie in for Reed.
Yeah. So
Fine.
you're more vibes, I'm more
Yeah.
pragmatic.
Yeah, my team would have loads of followers on social media.
My team would be winning the league, so
Yeah,
yeah, there we
exactly.
go. That's the most important thing I'd say. This one, I haven't really got any answers. I may have got a couple of answers, but I enjoyed it. I think you'll have loads. Brian Smith. This might go over like a lead balloon, but I'd be interested in a conversation about good football literature,
Yeah.
fiction or non, Fulham or non, for those of us who like a good summer read.
Excellent.
I mean, at this point, Jack and Loz's books, obviously.
Yeah.
Jack and Loz's books, they've all got a Fulham twist. If you haven't read them, it's absolutely perfect for any Fulham fan. But I know that you'll have a few here.
I've got a list
Okay.
of my favourite football books, so I'm just going to read them off for you.
How many books is this?
About 10.
Oh, wow.
Then
Strap
none
in.
of them are Fulham related. I probably should add. So The Miracle of Castel di Sangro by Joe McGuinness, which is about like diving deep into like a third tier team in Italy who are basically going through like all of like elements of corruption within the league, etc. Is absolutely fascinating. Like it's a real read, but it's written kind of from the first perspective of like how he experienced it. And it's just phenomenal. Like one of the best books I've ever read. Like full stop, never mind like football books, but it is just a sensational read and couldn't recommend it anymore. There's a couple of those in terms of like actual like read through an eyes. There's a book called Grobar, Partisan Pleasure, Pain and Paranoia by James Moore, which is about his experiences of basically ingratiating himself with Partizan Belgrade and like becoming part of the faction and the ultras, and like how he experienced that as someone coming into the club, which is written from a kind of similar perspective. Like they're very much like, this is how I experienced it, first person perspectives, and they're both true stories but read like thrillers. So I think that those two would go in their own kind of category there. Ultra by Tobias Jones, really, really good read about like the different levels of like fans around Europe and the depths they will plumb to at times. But it's a really, really intriguing one. I really like Angels with Dirty Faces by Jonathan Wilson, which is about the history of Argentinian football. Bring Me That Horizon by Miguel Lorenzo Pereira, which is about the history of...
Hang on, I've seen them live.
Very good. Very good. Well done. I don't know where to go from that. That's about Portuguese football.
Okay.
And then there's some really interesting ones in terms of Fear and Loathing in La Liga by Sid Lowe is about the history of Barcelona and Real Madrid and like how that rivalry has developed down the years, all the way back from like the years of Franco all the way up to the kind of modern day. There's a book by Chris Etchingham called Emancipation for Goalposts, The Rise of Football in the Fall of Yugoslavia, which is intriguing, like real like wild thoughts. And then Blood and Circuses, A Football Journey Through Europe's Rebel Republics by Robert O'Connor, which is about like basically states that can see themselves as independent and often aren't recognised by the countries they come from. So like Transnistria and Moldova, but also like there's a bit about the Basque Country, Catalonia, all those kind of areas that kind of see themselves as independent but are kind of subsumed within bigger countries as well. So that's a couple for you to read.
10.
That wasn't all of them, to be honest. That wasn't all of them.
We'll put these in the link of the description.
Yes.
Not with links, but we'll put them in the description. So if anyone wants to have a look through those, get their summaries.
If you're going to read one of them, read The Miracle of Castel de Sangro. Like, it's a genuinely phenomenal book. Like, and absolutely like page turner, as well as being really interesting about the depths of what was going on in Italy at the time.
Nice. I mean, actually, in the Telegram, a couple of people responded to Brian's question with highly recommend the Miracle of Castel de Sangro as well. So, all right.
Great book.
There we go. If we've picked up one, it's that. And we'll put the list in the description of the podcast. Max Hockett asks, could you rank the different away days on the schedule? Now, I don't think we need to go from 19
all of them.
to 1. I don't think we need to go from 19 to 1. We might be here until it's Friday Club. But should we do top 3 each?
Yeah.
I would be like, and I think Max might be thinking like, if I was going to pick 3 away games this season, what do you think you should go to? Assuming that you've never been to, I guess, an away game.
Okay.
So,
do you want to start?
Yeah, I'm just racking my brain because I had not planned this out. Okay. Definitely. I mean, for me this season, I've been to a few away games, but I want to do Everton.
Yeah.
Like, I want to see the new stadium. I think that will be a real event. I imagine that Fulham will sell that out pretty comfortably because I think a lot of people will be keen to see
what's going on at the Dixie.
Yeah, at the Hill Dickinson. I would say St James's Park is a must as an away day.
Yeah. It's not too bad this year as well. It's not the depths of winter, is it?
Yeah, I think it's like October, kind of October time. And I know you'll say Stadium of Light, so I'll stay away from that one.
Correct.
What's the one that I would definitely say to do? I'd tell you what, if you can get a ticket, then Bournemouth's a lot of fun.
Yeah.
I mean, I know it's quite obvious, but it's not even just like it's by the seaside and all of that. Like it's pretty easy to get to. It's in a nice location. I enjoy Bournemouth away every time. The view of the pitch as well is so un-Premier League. You feel like you're at a kind of League Two game. You can feel and smell
that
the players.
Oakwell vibe about it.
Yeah, you can you just feel like you're right next to the players. You feel like when Sessegnon's on the left wing, you could give him an instruction and he will hear you. Like, and that's quite exciting. So
it's a worry, I think.
Yeah.
Ignore what Marco says. Cut in.
Well, if they'd have heard me last season, I'd have told them to make sure they definitely know they're being substituted.
Oh yeah.
Before they run off the pitch too eagerly. So okay, they're my top 3.
So there's a couple here for me. I think Brighton on the opening day in the sunshine in August is pretty glorious.
The only thing I thought about Brighton is like, I always enjoy Brighton, but the travel to Brighton
No,
is so
I completely agree.
bad.
I just mean in terms of like as an opening fixture at that time of the year. If Brighton was in November, I'd be telling you to go nowhere near it. Like, it's just considering it's the opening day, and I think it will be lovely, and it's always nice to get that excitement. Yes, the travel is an absolute nightmare.
3 words: go via Lewis.
Yes, go via Lewis. Always go via Lewis. But that's a pretty cool one. Sunderland Stadium of Light in February. I'm so excited for this. It's like my birthday weekend as well, so I was like, we can get back up to the northeast, and I love the Stadium of Light. I've got a real soft spot for Sunderland, so I'm really excited to go back there. And on a slightly sadder note, but I don't think any less poignant, we play Liverpool on the 11th of April, which is Hillsborough Memorial Weekend. Okay. Which is a pretty special occasion, I think, to be going to Anfield. So that one I would put into the conversation. I think I've been up there for Memorial Weekend before, but not to see Fulham play. And so to be up there for that weekend, I think it is quite historic and quite special. So.
And just like
Anfield's amazing.
I've done Anfield enough times to not be that excited by it anymore.
It's an incredible stadium.
But the first time I went as like 12 or something like that, like it was.
It was always the one that I wanted to go to. Like, it was
Yeah.
the one that for years I was like, can we go to Anfield? Can we go to Anfield? And the first time I went, I was like, wow, okay, yeah, fair.
Yeah, and like, don't get me wrong, Liverpool fans can be like insufferable and stuff, but
So can most fans, to be fair.
but like the first time you go, it is magic.
Yeah, 100%. I think if that game is kept on a Saturday in particular, that'd be quite special, because we've had some Sunday games against Liverpool where obviously You'll Never Walk Alone is very loud and then you don't really hear anything for the rest of the game. But this isn't something I'm holding against Liverpool fans. It's the same for pretty much any ground in the country.
Yeah.
If you get them on the wrong day, it can be dead as a dodo, right? But you get them on that weekend on a Saturday afternoon, I think the place will be absolutely roaring, and to hear it in full flight is something pretty spectacular.
I mean, ideally, you want it to be kind of dead, right? 'Cause
Yeah, I
it's
mean, it
probably
gives you a better chance.
Yeah.
But also, like, to experience Anfield in those kind of moments. I've been lucky enough to be there for a couple of Champions League games and stuff, and
Yeah.
it's pretty breathtaking. I don't think I've ever heard anything in England like that.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Okay, there we go. Any more?
No, I mean, I had Forest written down, but
The thing is, as well, like, I actually do really enjoy all of the London aways. It doesn't feel like enough to say, like, oh, it would go into the ranking, because I think there's an element of a London away. It almost feels a bit like a home game, just in terms of the travel. It's easy. But, like, all of them...
will I be at the Bridge? Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, we'll always be at the Bridge. With the exception of West Ham, and actually...
I was going to say, and like getting to and from Spurs is an absolute, I'm going to say nightmare, to be polite.
Yeah, Spurs travel is annoying. And to be honest, they're all a little bit
You're going to go Spurs, go hospitality. I don't think I'm ever going back. I'm done now. Thank you. It was lovely.
Just hospitality.
Yeah. I've never done hospitality before or since. I don't think I'm ever going to do it again or ever go back to Spurs.
David Williams asks, would be interested in your take on Seth Rigeon. Obviously, he's been heavily linked to the move away. He's a highly, highly, highly tipped, promising Fulham youngster. I'd be lying if I said I know absolutely loads on exactly what he brings. But he is touted with a potential move away. What is your take on this? Because I don't really know where to think anymore. Like, there's an element of good youngsters come and good youngsters go until they are at the level of Josh King and Luke de Fougerolles, where they are on the verge of the first team and you can kind of like sense what they're going to be. I personally don't feel like I can get too worked up about where a 15, 16-year-old ends up.
Yeah, also, like, there's not loads the club can do about it either.
Yeah.
Like, you're at that point in your career where you're not able to offer a professional contract until you hit 17, I think it is. So, like, when you're at that point, if there is an incredibly talented youngster and people are sniffing about, then if they're going to be given opportunities and pathways at bigger clubs, then they're going to be pushed to take them. Seth Rigeon is an incredibly talented footballer at his age. Does that guarantee success further down the line? No, but like, I think that he is pretty, like, in terms of the way that he plays, but also his physicality, etc. I don't think it's like he's overdeveloped at a young age and therefore is able to dominate in a different way. He's England under-16s captain, I think. And having seen a bit of him, he's a really interesting, like, quite versatile midfielder, can play a couple of different roles, but someone who looks very, very comfortable in the presence of players much older than him. We've seen him kind of make different, play different teams across the Fulham kind of youth systems, but yeah, I think that whilst it would be a blow for Fulham to see, someone who is currently captaining their country leave the club at this kind of age, there is not loads you can do about it. Like, It's just one of those things. And obviously Fulham can do better in terms of offering a pathway, showing what the way is, showing that there's a route to first team football. And perhaps this is part of, the Josh King and Luke de Fougerolles discussions that, they'll now go and be like, look, we've just offered long-term contracts to these two guys who have come up through. We're going to be offering them playing time. We're going to be making sure that they get to the top of the game. Would you not like something similar? Maybe that's all part of it. But if he leaves and goes to another club at this point, at this age, it's a shame, but there's not loads that we can there's not loads to think about it. And there's also a lot of variables before a player like that makes it to the top level.
Yeah. Thomas asks a very interesting question. He said, if you were going to show a new Fulham fan matches that have defined the Cairn era, which ones would you pick? So,
you gave me prep time on this, which I'm grateful for.
Okay, well, if you've got prep time, do you want to knock yourself out?
I picked 6 games.
Okay.
Stoke City 4, Fulham 1, 3rd of May 2014.
Brutal day,
but it was the first real milestone of the Cairn era being relegated.
Okay. I have one more from that season that I would put in.
Is it Hull City? being 2-0 up at half time and then drawing 2-2.
No.
Shame bloody long.
It's actually a positive one from that season, but a positive that I think summed up all of our weaknesses, which was beating Palace 4-1. Basically,
there was 2 goals of the decade contenders from Fulham, so there's that.
But that game just showed that Fulham were based on individual quality.
Yeah.
That's all we had, was just a smattering of quality and no team. That it was just, let's stick in Berbatov and Paitim Kasami and Brian Ruiz and like all of these like great individual players, and there was absolutely no cohesive plan whatsoever to the way
it
that
was Steve Sidwell and Hope.
Yeah.
I think was the rest of the team.
And I think
set
the
up.
fact that Khan was at that game, Shahid Khan, that is, I think he must
lulled
have
him into a full
he
sense
must have
of
gone
security.
to that today in his first season at Fulham and gone like, we're good.
Yeah.
This is easy. Yeah. We're not going down. What a great purchase I've made. And little did he know that actually the fact that we won that game in that way just probably showed what a team we were.
Yeah, that was
as fun as that night was.
That was tough.
Okay. Your next one?
Fulham 1, Aston Villa 0, 26th of May 2018. Final.
It's a fun day.
That was a good day. I think this is it. There's ups and downs in this list, right? Like, as in, that was the kind of glory moment back up. The kind of nadir after that, right? After such a peak. Watford 4, Fulham 1, 2nd of April 2019, which was not just important in terms of it was the game that relegated us, and it was such a kind of sad display in such a big game, but also it was the game with all the banners. It was all the game where, like, I think like fan frustration with the Khan ownership hit its probably peak. So I would probably put that in there and being like, that was maybe the kind of low point of all of it.
Yeah.
I would then go Fulham 7, Luton 0 on the 22nd of May 2022.
Yeah.
I would go Fulham 2, Liverpool 2 on the 6th of August 2022, because that was the game that we came back and we were like, it's Liverpool at home. You know, we just need to put in a performance. It doesn't really matter what the result is. And we came out of that being like, could have got 3 there. We're going to be all right. And we're going to be all right. And I think that was the kind of moment you were like, this is a team that's going to stay up. And I think that after one day in the Premier League is often a false dawn. It wasn't. And like, I think we knew deep down in our heart of hearts, after seeing that performance and seeing the heart and grit and fight in all of it, that this was going to be different. And then I've obviously put Chelsea 1, Fulham 2, 26th of December 2024 in there, because why not?
Yeah, I won't put it in there because I didn't go, so it doesn't count. I'm going to add a couple of other ones that I think are slightly more forgettable, but actually I think Fulham 1, Bristol City 2. Genuinely the day I thought we were going to go down to League One.
That day, I don't think I've ever been in a blacker mood. I remember coming out and I was going to a gig. Lucy bought me tickets to a gig afterwards, and we were going up to Alexandra Palace, and she was like, you haven't spoken for half an hour. And I was like, Lee Tomlin. Lee Tomlin. Like that, I was absolutely and utterly convinced we were relegated.
Yeah, and I couldn't believe the situation that we'd got ourselves into, given some of the talent on that pitch. And I never forget Ross McCormack's lob. One of the best goals I've ever seen to put Fulham in front, and then the way we just capitulated against a direct relegation rival. We were very lucky to get away with going down that season.
We won the next game against Cardiff. Right?
We actually won 3 in a row, which was completely separate.
Including the absolute like topsy-turvy Middlesbrough game, right?
Yeah, and none of the wins were like that deserved. Even the Cardiff game was just like, we weren't great.
We ground our way through that. I think, was it 4-2 or something like that? But we ground our way through it. 2-1.
Emerson Heineman scored, that's all I remember.
That's it.
Blast in the past. As a more positive, I actually would do Millwall away. The 3-0 on that
Death by 1,000
night.
passes.
No, the night that was at the Den, and obviously that's where Millwall play, but in the 23 undefeated run, we were amazing that night. Actually unplayable, and Millwall was so in form. The Den was like a furnace. I've never been in an atmosphere quite like it, and actually Fulham just so showed up that night.
That's a great shout. That's a period I hadn't included, but the 23 undefeated was just a joke.
Southampton away in that relegation season was very toxic.
That was the day that we made up the Claudio Ranieri chant. The Fulham don't like him, sack Ranieri.
Yeah, well that was Ranieri. That was Ranieri's final game.
Yes,
and
we recorded a podcast on the train home.
Yeah, I always think that was a particularly bleak point. And then
that was also one of my birthday days
Yes.
out. We'd gone for my birthday.
Yeah, we had a night out. We had a bit of a fun evening, bit of gallows humour. And then they had the rest of them. I think I'll go with like the Luton and the Liverpool and Chelsea at a point. Even though
Chelsea at a point, breaking a 60-year duck. I'm afraid not, pal. That's going in.
even though I wasn't there. But yes, I mean, I think I found it very interesting going through Cairney's time, which almost coincides with the Cairn era, even though there were 2 seasons before Cairney joined. But you just realise how topsy-turvy it was for an awful long time, and that this stability now is such a change from what it was.
This is it, isn't it? It's like, it's a bit kind of like, obviously we can have, and we want to have ambitions to continually move forward, but the stability at the moment, we prayed for, you used to pray for times like this, but but literally, like, there is if you go back and listen to those episodes in the up and down years, right, then there are points where the two of us were sitting there being like, what we would give to be Crystal Palace right now, like what we would give to just be 12th in the Premier League for 3 seasons on the trot. And well, we're not quite there, but we're around that roundabout.
Yeah. Richard Smith sent this through. I don't know if you read this email from the Fulham Supporters Trust. It was quite I almost found it funny to a point, but Richard forwarded it on to us. I had read it, and basically the Fulham Supporters Trust interviewed somebody from Fulham's caterers and asked a ton of questions.
I did see this. It was really strange.
It was quite strange.
Also, just so we're clear, I think it's quite interesting, and I think it's quite it's good work from the trust. It just was a bit of a strange email.
Yes, it was a little bit.
It didn't really explain what it was doing.
No,
the email. I was like, I don't really know what I'm reading.
Yeah, I was a bit like, I wasn't expecting this, but I've enjoyed it nonetheless. And also, it was basically, comments were given obviously by fans direct to the thing, but there was kind of no filter on it. So it wasn't like a direct question. It was just, one of the questions are, current burgers are awful. And then it was, MHQ accepted that outside the Riverside, the burgers are not the best. This is mainly due to the need to oven cook, referenced above. Again, just kind of like, okay. Oh, that's that then. Burgers will continue to be awful. We cannot do anything about that.
I was like, look, there are some interesting bits. I also feel like, they're talking to like a member of this team. Like, in my head, I was like, is it just someone who's there, helping out? And they're like, hang on, they've fired 50 questions for someone who's just like, I just do the
There's another one here where the comment is, congestion, in brackets queues, in Horseshoe, which I think is them referencing every stand other than the Riverside, making it impossible to get anything at half time. The response, this is a long-standing issue with no immediate solution.
I don't really know, like, what's supposed to be achieved.
I mean, like, there was...
Also, it's definitely not like on, like, I appreciate, there's some questions, like the one about the burgers is about the catering staff, but like, the logistics of how the stands work is definitely not down to the people cooking
No,
food.
I mean, there were some interesting things, and it said like there's reasons that they have to. I didn't even know you could oven cook a burger. But they say that they haven't got the facilities in order to be able to fry burgers, so they have to oven cook them. So that's why when you buy a burger from the Hammersmith end, apparently it doesn't taste that good. And I guess that is just the caterers saying like, well, we haven't got the facilities to do it. I'm not really blaming the caterers here.
Yeah.
There's another one here.
We don't have the facilities for that.
There's just some of these are so funny. Ledges to put drinks down in Hammersmith end. Response will be looked at. Cool. We'll get some ledges.
That would be useful, to be fair.
Yeah, and then there's also some positives in here. Willie's pies are great. Noted. Cool.
I mean, I probably would have filled the question list if I was them.
Richard Smith messaged us and he said, I thought the notes from the FST were very revealing. Whilst my initial thoughts were, that explains a lot, I have moved on to well, effing sort it out. If the club can install undersoil heating, enough power and gantries for TV coverage, they can surely get water plumbed into the Johnny Haynes and solve many of the other issues raised rather than making excuses.
Water in the Johnny Haynes is to do with the actual structure of the stand. I'm not sure how feasible that actually
But in
is.
fairness, Richard makes a good point.
If they can go under the pitch, surely they can go under the stand. Yeah, I don't know.
There's probably greater challenges have been solved by man.
100%. But it's a bit is it worth knocking the Johnny Haynes out for a quarter of a season?
Yeah.
It's about risk and reward at that point, right? So if you have to knock down or dig under the stand, you obviously can't put people in it at that point.
Yeah. Richard said it feels like another instance of the completion of the Riverside taking precedent over every other stand,
100%.
whereas a club that has 30,000 people visiting every 2 weeks ought to try to be nice enough to extract more pounds from many more of them. From Richard. So yeah, Richard, thank you for your attention. It also just made me really giggle, some of the responses, and find the email from the FST. It's just really funny. It's and I mean, there's no one's at fault in it. I'm not blaming anyone. It just genuinely, I was on the tube and just giggling at half of the responses. Ollie Marlowe asks, this time last year we were all surprised Birmingham paid 14 million for Jay Stansfield, and I think we all agreed it was a fair price. However, looking back, surely he would have played more games than Josh King, who we highly rate due to the injuries up front at the end of the season and on the left wing with Harry and Reiss being injured and Alex needing a rest. Also, with his performances holding the ball up for the under-21s this summer and running after every ball, it seems that every other player in the under-21s team is now apparently worth 30 to 40 million. Does that now look like a terrible deal, letting another academy player leave before reaching his potential at the Cottage?
I think there's kind of a weird element of this in that when we were looking at it last summer, it felt like a fair price, right? We also talked at that time about Fulham probably needing to put a buyback in there and a sell-on clause if not, right? So that there is capacity. He was excellent, I thought, for the 21s this summer, right? I thought he did really, really well, and actually his all-round game has come on leaps and bounds. Would it have come on that much at Fulham? Would he have played more? Yeah, I actually completely agree with that point. I think that actually as it came to the end of the season, and look, Marco didn't want to lose him. That wasn't something that they foresaw coming. They thought that when the bid came in, it was too big a bid to turn down at that point for a player who also, I think, at that point was like, I'd like to go and play every week for this Birmingham side where he'd obviously been absolutely adored by the fan base. Yeah. So there's that element of it that you have to kind of take into consideration, the human side of it. And if he was saying, I'd like to go and pursue this opportunity, it's difficult to say no when the fee on the table seems fair. So, a year on, is he a better player for having played 40-odd games for Birmingham City and starting most of them and, powering a team towards the top of League One and then up to promotion? Yeah, I'd say he probably is. Has he come on more at Birmingham than he perhaps would have done at Fulham in the same spell because he's been able to actually take on that responsibility and be their main man? Yeah, I'd probably suggest that too. So whether he is worth more than 13, 14 million now, I think he's probably right. I think he probably is. I don't know if that's quite 30, 40 yet. He's still really only done it at Championship, at League One level and, a little bit at the bottom of the Championship. But when we're talking about a player who's come on, if he's improved 6-7 million from where we've had him, if he's a £20 million player now, let's just say, and paying £20 million for a player out of League One would be considered pretty absolutely mind blowing by most. So that would be a big figure to put on him. But if he is that, has he grown that 5-6 million at Birmingham? Over the course of this season, probably. So you can't really be like, oh, was he? Would Fulham ideally to keep Jay Stansfield? Yeah, 100%. No doubt about it. But when a bid comes in like that, when the player suggests that they want to make that move, to stand in their way feels a little bit unfair at that point when there isn't obvious opportunities for them in the first team. And
also, I believe that PSR played a massive factor in it, right? And probably without PSR, I don't know if Fulham would have been quite as hasty to accept that bid, right? You have to balance the books. There is the looming points deduction, and it was pure profit for Fulham that they could then reinvest into buying more players. I think
as we said, it gives you £60 million to play with in terms of the budget, right?
I mean, we all spent last summer laughing at Birmingham at the idea that they would because we just were like, you're never going to stump up the money, and then all of a sudden they did.
Yeah.
And it was like, all right, well, I guess you've met the valuation, and
But also, there's a level of that. But like, you're not expecting a team in League One to go and blow the League One transfer budget like 7 times out of the water. But they did. That's and then they got promoted. Fine, fair enough. Like, if anyone's suggesting that's a fairy story, it's not. Like, they've basically gone in and they've bought players who are worth more than what their league is. And there's nothing wrong with this, right? Like, it's what Ipswich did, and then Ipswich's bounce back to the Premier League in the second season was seen as the fairy story. But actually, what they did in League One was pretty similar, albeit on a kind of lower budget, to what Birmingham did. And they just bought a load of players who were too good for the league, and then they brought them up to the Championship, and turns out they were a really cohesive unit and they were well put together. And I wouldn't be surprised if Birmingham are pushing towards, maybe not going and doing what Ipswich did, but pushing towards the playoff places next season, because their team was well. They've also just bought Kyogo. So, like, is Jay Stansfield going to play as much this year? I mean, question marks could be raised. Like, if you buy Kyogo, he's going to start, right? Like, that's a player who has banged in goals pretty much everywhere he's gone. He was a marquee signing for a Championship team. Let's find out. Let's see what happens.
All right, well, that will do for the pod today. Really enjoyed all your questions, so thank you for getting in touch with those. Fulhamish will return next week. Jack and Joe show should be back on Tuesday, looking at all the latest Fulham transfer rumours, and then we'll be back with the Thursday Club next week. Jack Collins, thank you very much.
Thank you, Sammy. It was a pleasure.
And have a wonderful weekend, whatever you're doing. You whites.
You whites.